What is up, legends? Welcome back to the Sub10 podcast. This is episode 9, and today I'm going to be going through all of your race questions that you guys had for me post Cairns. Now, before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. Yes, this podcast did used to be called the Try with Alex podcast, but I'm rebranding and I'm putting everything that I'm doing into the Sub10 category. Okay, so Sub10 podcast, Sub10 loading on Instagram and YouTube and things like that. And then now, also really recently, I'm building the Sub10 community, which is on School. So there'll be a link in this description if you are loving the podcast and you want to be a part of the Sub10 community. It's absolutely free to join. It's just a bunch of triathletes that are giving advice, sharing experiences, learning from one another, and enjoying the sport together. So please go and join us on the Sub10 community on School. I'm really excited to continue to grow that community. Excited to do some meetups and Q&As on there. So yeah, go and jump on there. Next, this episode is very generously sponsored by Garmin. As you guys know, Garmin is like the gold standard of triathlon tech, and I've been lucky enough to work with them for the last couple of months now. They've sent me out their Garmin Edge 1050 and their Rally RS 200s, the power pedals, and I've been using these things for probably about 2 or 3 months now since being in Europe, and I am just absolutely loving it. The cycling computer, I'm sure you guys already know, but the cycling computers from Garmin are just phenomenal. They have it's so easy to upload maps and routes onto the device so that you can just go anywhere. Like I can literally just pick a distance, say 100 kilometers, 3 hours, whatever it is, and then put it into the Garmin, and it will just take me through the best roads, the best bike paths everywhere throughout the Netherlands in a country that I've never even been before or cycled in. That's just phenomenal, and it has really been a game changer for my cycling journey so far. The Rally RS 200 pedals, the power pedals, they've been super convenient as well because I can just take them on and off my bikes. And after I gave my bike away in the Gold Coast, I've ridden 3 or 4 different bikes in 2 different continents, and I've had power every single time from just changing the pedals each time. Now I'm going to do an Instagram video about the RS Rally 200 soon, so stay tuned for that because I go into them a little bit deeper and explain more of the perks around those power pedals. So stay tuned for that. But big thanks to Garmin for sponsoring this episode. And now we may as well get stuck into the questions. So as I said, I'm going to answer a whole bunch of questions that you guys had for me after Cairns. This obviously took a long time to get to, with moving from the Gold Coast to Perth and then heading over to Europe. It's just been crazy times, and then I went to London and the UK, so it's taken a lot longer to get to this podcast than I intended, but we're here now, and I have some really, really exciting questions that you guys have given me from Instagram, and I'm super excited to answer these for you and get into the race a little bit more, because I haven't shared a lot of detail about the race. I was really quite devastated afterwards, and then sort of went into my cave and my shell for a little bit, and then just got straight back into training into the second attempt. So this will be a really good way for you guys to hear from me what it was like, answer some of your questions. Some of them were really funny as well. And hopefully it gives you guys some insights into your own races and your own training from there on out. So how it's going to work, there are 9 questions to do with the training and the build up to the race. And then I've got 25 questions particularly about the race, and then a couple of generic questions that we'll end on to finish up the podcast. So let's dive in. So a couple of training questions to begin with. The first one is, how do you mentally prepare for an Ironman? That's a really good question, and it's one straight on the blocks. How do you mentally prepare for an Ironman? I think the best way to mentally prepare for it is to physically prepare for it. The sheer size of an Ironman it's no joke. It's not something that you can rock up to with minimal training and just go and complete. And I'm a big believer that doing the work does mentally prepare you. If you can say to yourself or look yourself in the mirror and be like, yeah, I've left no stone unturned, and I'm feeling like I've done everything possible to get myself in the best position to race the Ironman, whether you're going for a time or not, then I think that is what mentally prepares you best. So I hope that answers that question. Obviously, you can do things like mental visualization, I think is really important, but it can also just be seen as dreaming, which can be procrastinating. So I think the best thing that you can do to give yourself the confidence and the clarity before your race is to be consistent with training and get the work done, if that makes sense. Question 2. When training, do you ever do an entire full distance Ironman for a session? No. This would be really, really strange if an athlete were to do this. And the reason being is it's such a big amount of exercise. Like 10 to 12, 15 hours of training is just in one hit is so demanding on your body. And it's going to take you days, weeks, sometimes even months to recover from that. So no, I don't think you should go out and do a full distance Ironman. What I would do recommend, and I actually spoke about this with Jack Szynski on one of the podcasts, is looking at your training or the Ironman distance in like a 2 or 3 day period. So for example, you might try and accumulate the fatigue of an Ironman over the course of like 2 or 3 days. So you might do a long swim into a 3.5, 4 hour ride. All right. And then you might do the next day, you might do another 3 hour ride into a 35 kilometer run, a really long run. Or you might just go out and do a really cool race ready session where you do a big 5-6 hour bike and then jump off the bike and do a good 20, 25K run, something like that, which is getting closer to the distance, but I don't think you would ever go out and just do a full Ironman. If you were speaking to Dave Scott, who is a Ironman world champion from the 1980s, 1980s to 1990s, I believe, he probably would have. And I actually really like Dave Scott's philosophy, but in today's day and age, I think there are easier ways to achieve that, if that makes sense, without the stress and the demand on your body. So I wouldn't recommend it if I was to coach, but maybe it does work. Maybe that's me procrastinating. Who knows? I have never tried it. So cool. Question 3. What was the biggest swim, bike, and run before the event? This is a good question. So the swim, I actually did a 10K swim. If you've been following me for a while, that was like a challenge that I did when I reached 10,000 followers, that I would do a 10K swim. That is not necessary for Ironman training. I would not recommend it. It didn't seem to help me as much as I thought it would. I thought that if I did 10Ks, then the 3.8 in the Ironman would seem like nothing, and that just didn't happen, unfortunately. But apart from that 10K swim, I think I did up to 4Ks. Because the swim is the shortest leg, you can go out and do the full distance and do it well in the space of an hour without actually cooking your body too much. So I did a few 4K swims. I don't think there's any harm in going 4.5, 5Ks regularly if you're comfortable in the water. I think that would be beneficial to you, doing like an hour and a half sort of swim. I think that's really helpful, but I never got that far. I think this time around in the lead up to Busselton I will though. My longest bike ride was a 5-hour bike, and I pushed quite hard on that. That was my biggest race ready session. So it was a 5-hour bike into, I think, a 15-kilometer run. So that was my biggest session. It was about 6 hours, and I pushed quite a lot of power on that 5-hour bike leg. I think I did 172 kilometers, and then again run the 15K straight off the bike, and I ran it pretty well as well. I think 4:30 pace, 4:40 pace, which is what I actually intended my marathon time or marathon pace to be in the Ironman. But I will get to this a lot later. That didn't happen at all, so I'll talk about that later in this podcast. And then the longest run was, I think I did up to 32, 33. But again, I was accumulating fatigue. So that 32, I wasn't fresh. I was coming off like a big bike the day before. So I was trying to accumulate that fatigue. But in hindsight, having crumbled on the run, I kind of wish that I had done some longer runs and some more bigger brick sessions where I do a really big bike into a long run. And again, we'll talk about this soon. What was your final race ready session? Oh, well, I've just covered that one there. It was that 5-hour bike into a 15-kilometer run. So we don't need to go into that anymore. That's a good one. What is the secret to keeping your ankles and knees injury free? I don't think there's any secret sauce to this one, apart from you can do strength work. I think youth is what keeps me injury free at the moment. I kind of neglect strength work in the gym, and yeah, I'm not big on, I don't do a whole lot of mobility or anything like that. I think it's very useful, especially the older you get. So once you get into 35s, 40s, beyond that, I think strength work, leg strength work in the gym is really important for injury prevention. It's probably important now, but because I'm quite youthful still, I think that I can get away with that a little bit more. And it might come around to bite me in the ass when I do get an injury. If I haven't done it, then I might have to eat my words here a little bit. But yeah, no secret sauce for that one, unfortunately. I think I'm just lucky to have a bit of youth on my side. And I would recommend, if you are a little bit older, then getting into the gym and doing some strength work. Yeah. Right. Do I consume alcohol? If so, when and how much? Is it possible to be a triathlete and still drink? I used to be, I would even classify myself as a bit of an alcoholic. I used to drink like a fish, especially through my younger 20s. I was a heavy drinker. And since getting into triathlon and sort of, I've changed my ways a little bit, not just from triathlon specifically, but once I got to 25, 26, my life started to take a shift, and alcohol, I still drink. Like if I go back home to Perth and see my family and friends, I'll have a beer with my brother, like absolutely. But I very rarely just drink because I can drink, and if I do ever drink, like if I'm seeing my brother or we're at a party or whatever, I might have like 1 or 2 beers. I very rarely have more than 2 or 3 beers in a night. Like it doesn't do me well. It doesn't do my sleep well. It doesn't make me feel good the next day. It doesn't help with training. It doesn't help with weight loss. The carbs are just carb bombs, the beers. So yeah, I personally don't. But in saying that though, I follow a guy called Iron Max on Instagram, and I think, well, I mean, I don't know the intricacies of his life, but he seems to live life at his absolute fullest. He's constantly training and he's succeeding and he's constantly pushing the boundaries of what he's capable of. And I'll see him necking a beer, right, and like celebrating with his friends and stuff. So my philosophy is, if it works for you, if you want to drink and you love the social aspect of drinking, go and do it. And if it affects your training and then that leads to negative emotions or difficulties in life, then stop, right? Like, or bring it back a little bit. You are the only person that's going to know that. But I will never discourage enjoying life. And alcohol is a wonderful tool to be able to interact with people and to be social and bring down, be a really good icebreaker and things like that. So I'm a big advocate for living life to your fullest, and alcohol plays a part in that. So definitely don't cut it. I wouldn't recommend cutting anything out turkey, like cold turkey, but if it affects your training and your sleep and you can feel it being a burden at times, then limit it. That would be my advice. At what point in your training should you set your target time? Oh, great question. Really, really good question. For me personally, I set my target time day one. Like, as you guys know, I started the challenge. I said I want to try and do an Ironman in under 10 hours. And it can be good and bad, that. The good thing is that, like, you can't, it doesn't really put a cap on your potential. If it's a really high goal, then you strive for that goal, right? But a lot of people don't necessarily set timed goals, and I personally, I think they should. I think that if you can set a timed goal or a target time, I think it really improves your performance. As long as the goal is like a little out of reach, it can't be too easy and it can't be too hard. So when should you set your target time? Well, I don't know, a month out maybe? Like if you're doing all your training and then you get to a month out and you're a couple of weeks away from tapering, and then you go, okay, I've got a lot of data from some of my race ready sessions. I want to factor in the distance and conditions and things like that. That's probably getting close, maybe 3 weeks out is probably getting close to when if I were a coach, would suggest that you create a target time. Something to note here though is that target times, like I've experienced, can be a real burden. And I mean that because Cairns, I didn't race the race in front of me. I raced the race that I had planned in my head, and that I thought was going to get me a sub 10, right? But Cairns was windy. It was really, really windy. It was choppy in the water and it was hot. So all of these conditions, while I was, and I'll get to this a little bit later when we talk about the bike leg, I was pushing really hard to keep the pace on the bike because I had this idea of going sub 5 on the bike. But it cooked me on the run. It absolutely ruined me because I wasn't racing the race in front of me. So while setting a target time is super important, and I think it is really, really beneficial if you want to improve long term, it can be a burden, and I would always recommend that you race the race that's in front of you. And if you need to understand that you might not get that target time, then that's okay. You need to be honest with yourself about that. You should play, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on as well, but you should play to things like power rather than time. If I had made a plan around power as opposed to time for my bike leg, I think it would have been a completely different story in Cairns. I really do. So that's my advice. 3 weeks out maybe, but also race the race that's in front of you. Cool. Next question. What was your FTP going into the race? I think I pushed over 20 minutes, 343 watts, which then when you times it by 0.95, I think it came out at 326. The FTP is a funny one though, because it's such a short test. I feel like I can sustain pain for a short period of time well. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like that I can go through pain and discomfort for a short period of time really, really well. So when I'm doing an FTP, I know that it's ending soon, so I push and push and push, and I get this score that I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I'm really, really happy with that. But then translating that into training for one, and then the race, it's tricky to understand how accurate that is when you're talking about a 5-6 hour ride, because that's a very different measurement that we're talking about. So 326 was my FTP. That answers the question. Will I be placing as much emphasis on my FTP result leading up to Busselton? No, absolutely not. I won't be. So have that answer your question. Last one about training before we get stuck into the race questions. When was your first ever race and what was your time? My first ever triathlon race was in England at a place called Bolton. It was not last year, the year before that in June. So 2 years ago, pretty much, just over 2 years ago. I had no experience with triathlon whatsoever. It was a 70.3 and I just decided that I wanted to sign up. I always had a big aerobic base from football, Australian football. So I was comfortable running and I always cycled to school. I was always doing like lots of cycling as a kid. So I was like, I can swim, like I'll be fine. I did that race without any cleats. I had no idea about cycling in the way that triathlon knows about cycling. And it was a very hilly course, so I was pushing a lot of power and not really getting the maximum efficiency out of it. I had a carbon bike that I'd rented, but I didn't get any bike fitting or anything, no T-bars, anything like that. So I finished with a time of 5:25. I was disappointed because my goal was sub 5, but looking back on it now, I was amazed that I even got 5:25, to be honest with you, with the lack of training, the lack of knowledge, it was a fun day. I still vividly remember running down that red carpet at Bolton and just being ecstatic that I had finished. So that was a different story to sub 10. I was really, really happy, whereas sub 10, I was, as you guys probably know, I was quite disappointed. So right, that is the training questions done. And now we're going to dive into 25 race-specific questions about Cairns. I'm really excited about this because I haven't shared this with anyone in the social media world. So let's dive straight in. How did you handle the pre-race nerves and comparing yourself to others? The pre-race nerves are a funny one. I genuinely thought that I was going to handle the morning really, really well. I actually had a photographer coming to get a whole bunch of footage at the hotel that I was staying at. And normally I'd wake up, I'd have a coffee, I would do my routines, and he was there. And I just expected it to be like any other day, getting ready. And I was all over the place. Like I left the coffee in the microwave too long, and It was spilling everywhere. I forgot to have my creatine and my B vitamin energy pills, and I was just like all over the place, flustered. And I was going, like, I tried to go to the bike to get it racked, and then I left something there, and I was going back and forth, and the pre-race nerves were seriously real. And I think I spent so much energy in that morning before I even got into the water. So that's something that I'm going to really try to help to change this time around. When I get to Bustleton, I'm not going to be as focused on the social media side of things. Like last time I was doing daily reels leading up to it. This time around, I'm just going to be focusing and just breathing, relaxing, and enjoying as well, rather than building up the moment too much, because it was the morning of the race was just, it was a lot going on. In terms of comparing myself to others, because I've set the time goal, I've never really worried about other people's races, their times, anything. It's just been about achieving this and sharing with you guys and celebrating together if we get it. So I didn't really feel like I had to prove it to anyone else or to beat anyone else. I was just being out there for me, and yeah, I didn't really compare myself to anyone else on the day. Right, question 2. What was the general feel in the water? I hear other competitors try to drown you. This is a funny one as well. Yes, I mean, the feel in the water is hectic. It's absolutely crazy, especially that first buoy, getting out to the first buoy and turning and then trying to get in rhythm. It is just like no feeling of adrenaline I could ever explain to you. It's very fast. Everything's happening super quick. There are people everywhere, water splashing, but I don't actually think that people are there trying to drown you. I think people are trying to race their own race, and occasionally you might cop a leg or an elbow in the wrong way. But definitely, like, this mentality of, oh, this guy did this to me, and like, I'm the victim here. I just don't buy into that at all. I think that if I cop an elbow, like, good racing, you're pushing harder than me in this moment. So yeah, it's tough. It was choppy, and there's a lot happening, but I'm only ever focused on me. And if someone else gets in my way, then kudos to you, man. You go. I'll try and hold them to your feet, or I'll try and catch you. Yeah, I don't really buy into that. Cool. How did you optimize your transitions? How much attention do you pay to transitions? So I don't pay a lot of attention to transitions. I used to, and funnily enough, when I did Bolton, I didn't wear cleats because I was hoping to save time in transition. I thought I wouldn't lose too much power on the bike. That's a ridiculous thought pattern. If any triathlete knows that you're trying to save a few, let's say 10, 15 seconds, putting out some extra shoes to sacrifice 90 kilometers worth of extra power, it's just bizarre. So transitions, although try and optimize them as best you can, I don't actually think you should worry too much about your transition times. You might save 30 seconds to a minute if you think about it and hone in your transition time really, really deeply. But that you can focus your attention on a 5 to 6 hour bike leg that will gain you way more time as opposed to a couple of seconds in transition. So yes, consider it, practice it, enjoy it. Like, transition is always fun. I always look forward to getting in there and racing through it. Take a deep breath when you're in there. Get everything that you need, make sure that you've got it all, and then do the work on the bike. Don't worry too much about transitions. I mean, you can do things like the quick tie shoelaces, great, little things like that, but I wouldn't focus too much attention in your training and build up to transition. Just make sure that you're going to have everything. When you lay it all out, make sure that everything's there so that you know, yep, I'm good to go. Cool. So that's transitions, really. Right, tough one here. Carbs per hour. What was everything that you ate and drank on race day? And was it easy to scale up the 70.3 plan? This is something that I did not nail one bit. And it's something that leading into Bustle, I'm going to be paying a hell of a lot more attention to. I had planned to consume up to around about 100 grams on the bike per hour, but I didn't do it correctly at all. And the reason being is, in the build up to Cairns, I was training with sugar water and maltodextrin in a bottle, which was a really strong, intense bottle. And then on race day, because I needed to do it for 5 hours, I just kept putting sugar and maltodextrin into this one bottle. Normally it would be cold for training because I'd leave it in the fridge, but because it was at Cairns, the bike was sitting out in the sun while I was swimming and the sugar water was completely warm. So I was trying to drink this warm sugar maltodextrin water, this nuke of a bottle that was so intense for 5 hours that was warm. And it ruined my gut. It really did. I was struggling big time to get anything down. I tried to grab gels from the aid stations on the way through. I drank a heap of water early straight out of the swim. And yeah, getting off the bike, I had probably consumed 100 grams per hour. Like I probably had got through it all, but I knew that getting onto the run and trying to consume more from here on out was going to be really challenging. So yeah, I didn't have a major strategy around once I got to the run, how much I would try and consume. I just thought I'll get there, have as much on the bike as I can, and then continue to have as much as I possibly can on the run, which just blew up my face completely. So nutrition is one that I have to pay more attention to this time. And I would highly recommend that you speak to someone of expertise in the lead up to your race. If that's a coach, it's a dietitian, whatever it may be. Like, just you have to find some way to understand what your body's going to be doing and the best strategy for that, because I just didn't nail it one bit. Was it easy to scale up to the 70.3 plan? No, and to be honest with you, 70.3 is just such a different ball game. 70.3s, you can start the race and you can almost go like full ball and you know where your brink is the whole way, and you can grit your teeth and get through it. But the Ironman is just, it's so much further, and you can't just rock up and do it, which is what I tried to do. And yeah, you can't just, I mean, you probably can scale up your 70.3 plan, but I didn't really have a plan in the 7.3. Mine was just go out there, fucking race as fast as I can, and have as much nutrition as I can get through on the bike. And it was the same thing, but there was no structure behind it. So that was difficult to scale because I didn't have any structure. Right. What was the hydration plan on race day? I had 300 milligrams of sodium in that new bottle to balance out the sweetness of the of the sugar. Again, stupid. But yeah, it just didn't work. As I said, I drank a lot of water coming out of the water. I think I swallowed a fair bit of salt water while I was swimming, and then when I was on the when I started the bike, I was just drinking water, and I was filling up my front water bottle, which was just water, and I was constantly filling that up at every aid station. So I didn't really have a good hydration plan either. Something that I will be doing this time around is trying to get like a sodium or sweat test done so that I understand exactly not only how much I sweat, but how salty my sweat is. And then I can try and do the math and work out, right, what do I need per hour throughout the Ironman? If it's a hot day, if it's a mild day, if it's a cool day, So I'll be trying to do that later on the way to Sub10. Right. Cool question. This one, number 6. How do you process thoughts and pass the time while you're on a bike that long or during an Ironman? That is really tough. Like, most of my training I'm doing with a podcast or music. But yeah, when you're out there for 10 plus hours, you are with your own thoughts for that long and you're going through discomfort and pain. The best thing that I can recommend, and what I try to practice as often as I can, is positive self-talk. You're in the moment and you're racing and you're there. And if you can stay present and keep your mind on the task at hand and just constantly be reinforcing your belief in being able to do what you're trying to achieve, that's the best thing to pass the time. I'm constantly doing the math on how fast I need to be going to get to Sub10, how fast I did the bike and how long I've got left. So constantly doing math, it passes a lot of time. But then positive self-talk, telling myself that I've got this, telling myself that I'm going to be fine when I get on the bike. That is the biggest sort of superpower if you can just continue to give yourself that positive self-talk. And later on in these questions, I'm going to get to the point where that started to shift for me. That positive self-talk left me at one point in the race and it never came back. So we'll get to that soon. Thank you, George, for that question, by the way. I appreciate it. Not me. Right, so where's the next one? On the bike, did you focus more on speed, heart rate, or power? Being a time target goal, I definitely focused on speed. So I was, as I said, I was trying to get under that sub 5 hour bike leg. I needed an average pace of 36 kilometers per hour to do that. And I latched onto that, and I thought I had to do this if I wanted to give myself a big buffer on the run. I had the big buffer on the run, actually, and then I just crumbled. So that strategy just didn't work. I will not be working towards speed this time around. Leading into Bustleton, I will be working to power. It is a much better metric to work towards because it factors in the conditions. So if it's a windy day, which it was at Cairns, then pushing the power is the same amount. You're not overextending to keep the speed. Does that make sense? Heart rate's a funny one. It fluctuates too much, and it's a good metric to assist power. I think it's good to look at. If your heart rate's picking at 175, 180, then you need to take a chill pill for a moment and get it back down. But power is what I'll be working towards Bustleton, and I would recommend everyone do that, if I'm honest, unless you don't have power on your bike, of course. Cool. Next question. What was the average power and normalized power and my race weight for the race? So my average power was 234 for the whole race. My normalized power, which accounts for the intense spikes of going up hills and surges and things like that, was 253, which was probably too high, if I'm honest. In fact, I know it was too high. I blew up. So this time around, being a flat course in Bustleton and hopefully some improved fitness, I haven't worked this out yet, but I'm probably going to aim for about 250 normalized, maybe slightly higher if I'm feeling good, but we'll see closer to the date. My race weight was 90 kilograms, roughly. I didn't weigh myself much in the lead up to it, but I believe I was around about 90, maybe slightly heavier. And this time around, I will be trying to lose a bit of weight to about 87, 88. So that'll make a big difference as well if I can sustain the power that we had before. What was the intensity factor? So if any of the Training Peak nerds here, that is like the percentage, I think, of your threshold. So, what was the intensity factor? What was the intensity factor that you did on the bike? You said you pushed too hard. So I looked at this up when I read this question, and I did my intensity factor for the bike leg was 0.77, so 77% of my threshold, which I didn't really understand whether that was in the right zone or not. When I asked ChatGPT, it said that it should have been between, or roughly, this is speculation obviously and opinions, but should have been roughly between 0.68 and 0.73, somewhere in there. So it was a little bit higher, which makes sense. I was definitely, especially for that last 70 kilometers coming back from Cairns, I was pushing way too much power into the wind and spending way too many tickets for that last 70 Ks. Cool. All right, we're getting into some good ones soon. Right. Do you regret trying to go sub 5 hours on the bike? Did this cook you for the run? Yes, we've already spoken about this. Definitely latching up that time was not ideal. Right, this is a good one. When did you hit the brick wall in your race? I've been so excited to tell you guys about this question because it haunts me still. It really does. And yeah, every time I think about it, I put myself back in that moment and it kills me a little bit. It was about 22 kilometers into the run. So from about kilometer 15, my pace had started quite drastically dropping from like 445s, 450s, and then it was at 5s. And then by about kilometer 20, it was at 515s. And I thought that was the crossover point where I was like, okay, if I don't keep this pace now, I won't make it. And then funnily enough, then at kilometer 20, I had a second wind for about 3 or 4 minutes. I picked up the pace again to 450s, 455s, and I thought, holy crap, we're at the halfway mark of this marathon. Maybe I have got it in me. The positive self-talk came back, and I was like, far out. I'm going to do this again. And that lasted for 3, maybe 4 minutes. until kilometer 21, and then it slowly started to dip down again. And for the next 4 minutes, it went out to 5:30s, 5:45s. And at kilometer 22, I knew that I was never going to get fast. I could not get the pace back to under 5:15s, and I knew it was gone. And that was demoralizing. And when that happens, I'm sure many of you listening to this probably know, when that happens and the mindset shifts from hope or belief to so sure that you're not going to make it, it is virtually impossible. Well, in my experience, it's virtually impossible to bring yourself back in that moment. I truly believe that I had a sub 10 in me at Cairns. Like I think that the body was capable of going, but my mind gave up. And we can factor in nutrition and course and things like that. But I think the reality is that my mind gave up before my body did. And once the mind had given up and had convinced itself that it wasn't going to make it, it fell off a cliff. It really just completely fell off a cliff. It wasn't like it went 5:30s and then 5:40s and then 5:45s and then 5:50s. It went from 5:30s to 6:15, 6:30s. And I just remember thinking, like, not only am I convinced I won't make it now, but like, how am I going to do another 20 kilometers feeling like this? And I got stuck. I got so stuck in my own head of negative self-talk and disbelief, frustration. And then I was thinking about giving my bike away and how upset that would make me. And it was just like this continuous time loop of disappointment and frustration. And yeah, I remember I was coming around because I'd just completed 2 laps, and I was coming back around to where I knew my friends and May were, my partner. And I saw them, and I'd already made up my mind that I wasn't going to make it. I'd already crumbled. And I just remember seeing them and thinking, I've let them down. I've let them. I've shown all my cards. I was so confident. People close to me will know that I was really, really confident. Showed all the cards and then failed. And that was, it wasn't. It really affected my internal being. I was so upset and so disappointed. And then I had another 20 kilometers that I had to run feeling like that. It was demoralizing. It really was. So that was 22 kilometer mark was when I hit the brick wall. That was the moment I knew. Getting all the chills thinking about that moment. Shit. Right, now this question leads into that one, I guess. What motivates you when you reach the point of giving up? So in that moment, nothing. There was nothing that motivated me. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to finish. I wanted to end it. I wanted to go into my cave and escape. But what motivates me now and in the build up to this next attempt is the feeling I get when I get messages from people like you guys saying, you've inspired me to do this challenge. Like, I'm now going for a sub 6 half Ironman, or I'm doing this or doing that. When I think about that, the pain and the suffering and the discomfort is all worth it. And I know, I'm confident again that this time around I'll be able to do it. So that's what motivates me most. I'm also, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So that motivates me, because I don't like to be a man doesn't do what he says he's going to do. So that motivates me, I guess. Looking back on the race now, is there anything you would do differently? Yeah, lots of things. I would work to power, not to speed. I would analyze nutrition in the lead up to it better. I would definitely not spend anywhere near as much energy when I was heading into the wind on the way home. Another thing that I would definitely try and do is try and find a group. I rode the whole bike leg by myself. I was not with anyone the entire way. So I would definitely recommend, like, I know you can't draft within 12 meters, but finding a group and just being able to ride near people and get some benefits from sitting behind them, I should have done that. A lot of people do that, and I definitely should have done that. So that's something I'll do next time. And then just try and keep eating on the run. I'll try and hit probably like 60 or 70 grams per hour on the run this time around. And not place so much pressure on myself. In the lead up to it, don't not put the pressure on myself to get constant daily reels out, to update people, to do this, to that. Just focus and enjoy being there and get excited for it, but keep a level head, because I spent too much energy before I got in the water. So there's some things that I do differently. Anything unexpected about the Cairns course or the conditions? Yeah. So I did the Cairns course on the trainer a couple of times. So I knew the hills. I knew what the hills were like, and I could visualize them before the race, which was really handy. And I would recommend everyone do that for your races. But the wind I did not expect. I'd heard from everyone, but no one can prepare you for what it's like. Everyone had said, it's really windy coming back into town. It's really windy coming back into town. And that, I just didn't take it with face value. I thought, yeah, okay, it'll be windy, but I'll be fine. Like I've got an aero bike. I'll just sit in, and that just wasn't the case. The 70Ks, the back end of the bike was way harder than I thought it was going to be. So that definitely surprised me. Everything else though, the water as well was pretty choppy, because I went to swim at Palm Cove about 3 days before the race, and it was flat as a tack, and I thought, oh fuck, and it was the exact same time as when the race was going to be on the Sunday. So I was like, yeah, sweet, the swim will be right. Like if it's like this, I'll be hunky dory. But that surprised me rocking up on the Saturday night. I stayed in Palm Cove and I saw the wind, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be hectic, fucking hectic. So that definitely surprised me on the Saturday night. I was prepared for it Sunday morning because I'd seen it on Saturday night what it was like. So I was bracing for that. But the wind coming back from the bike, that was the one that really rocked me. Okay, we're up to question 15, so 10 more of these and then we're nearly done, guys. How did you feel entering T2 knowing that you still had a marathon to go? Great question. And funnily enough, you wouldn't believe it, but I actually felt good. The reason being is, like, I knew I'd push hard on the bike, but I'd finished the bike. And when you finish the bike, things like, okay, no more punctures, definitely. I can't get a puncture from here on out. That, I felt great about that. I was like, okay, it's all on me now. I had to do a 3:46 marathon to get the sub-10. Which I'd already done a 3:17 marathon standalone. So an extra 30 minutes is what I had. And I thought, coming off the bike, I thought, I can do a 3:30 marathon here. I really can. I was so confident that I would be able to grip my teeth, no matter how bad the pain, and get through and do a 3:30 marathon and finish at 9:46 or something like that. And so coming out of T2, I had a really quick transition. It was like 2 minutes or just under. And then took off, and I was feeling great. Like, once you get off the bike, it's a good feeling. You're like, I can't wait to the next one. And I just took off too fast. I heard once before that your first kilometer should be your slowest out of all of the kilometers in your marathon or in an Ironman. And that was definitely not the case. Took off at like 4:30 pace, and I was like, okay, if this feels good at the moment, I'm just gonna hold this as long as I can and see where it ends up, which is just the worst strategy in an Ironman. So that was a valuable lesson that I will take with me into Busselton. You need to get off the bike and settle. You really need to settle. You need to take a breath and just get into a rhythm really slowly. Get the nutrition that you need. Have a drink of water. Get your breathing in check. Bring the heart rate down a little bit, and then start to get into a rhythm, and then start to move at a pace that you would like to consistently run for the rest of the marathon. That didn't happen for me, but your question about how did you feel entering T2 knowing you had a marathon? I actually felt good. I really did. I felt like I had it. I knew it was going to be hard, but I still felt like I could run a 3:30 marathon pretty easily there. Definitely was not the case. Right. What was the best moment of the race? That's a good question. The best moment of the race. The first 15 minutes were really hard on the bike, and then settling on the bike was amazing. Once I had got into a rhythm and I was pushing power that I was happy with, I think the wind was behind me as well. I was going quite fast. And then the scenery on the bike's amazing. That was when I was like, this is sick. Like, I'm on here. You know, I've got out of the water. I finally brought my heart rate down. It was pinging coming out of the water, and I was stressed, and am I going to be able to do this? And once the heart rate had come down and I was like settling on the bike and feeling good, my glutes had stopped firing. They were so sore for the first 15 minutes. Then I was like, sweet, I'm on. And then the next like sort of 3 hours were like that. I felt amazing. I felt like I was really in for a good day. And then the turn from Port Douglas the second time, that was when it hit me. The wind hit you immediately. And then about 5 minutes into that wind, I was like, holy crap, this is going to be a long 70 Ks. This is going to be a really long 70 Ks. So that 3 hours, the first 3 hours on the bike were probably the best moment. And finishing as well. I was so glad to be done because I was hating it. The last 20 Ks, I was absolutely hating my experience. And I was so ready for it to be over. So finishing obviously was a really nice moment, as disappointed as I was. And I was really upset. I was really disappointed. As I said before, wear my heart on my sleeve. Okay, did you ever question yourself, why the hell am I doing this? Many times. Well, not really actually. I never questioned why I was doing it. And there was never a doubt of me not finishing. I knew I would just, if I had to walk, I'd walk the whole way. There was never doubt of not finishing, but there was moments where I was just completely done with it, completely done with almost life, like not just with the race, but with life. I was over it. I was disappointed and frustrated. And I guess those are the moments that you're talking about where you're thinking, why the hell am I doing this? But not finishing was never an option in my mind. I had never considered the fact of being like, I'm giving up here. No. How many times did you go to the toilet over the 10 hours? Did you stop or did you do it on the go? You would not believe this. I would have had 2 or 3 poos before the race and about maybe 3, 4 nervous wheeze before the race as well. And then the moment I got into the water, even in the water, in the wetsuit and everything, I didn't pee or poo once for the entire race. Not once. The entire race. Take what you will from that. I am going to take the fact that I was probably still dehydrated and not getting enough fluids in. But I literally, from the moment I got in the water until maybe 10 p.m. at night, when I had gone and had a beer and dinner with my friends and family after the race and then gone home, I didn't pee or poo until that moment. So it was it was a long time between peeing and pooing. I was shocked because I had practiced peeing on the bike. I don't know if you're viewing one of my Instagram reels a while back, but I actually practiced peeing on the bike because I didn't want to have to stop. But it never happened. I coming out of the water, I remember feeling like I needed to pee, and then it just went away, and I never came back. I never had to pee, and never had to poo. The entire time, I was, just racing, which was good. Good for me. Means I didn't have to stop, but yeah, a lot of people do stop. So maybe someone can shed some light on maybe why that would have been that I didn't have to pee or poo. Maybe it was the dehydration. Maybe it's something else. Please let me know. Okay. How did you feel after the race? Distraught, devastated, gutted, frustrated, angry, all of that. Like there was very little positive emotions. There was no pride. There was very little gratitude. There was no positive emotions until 2 or 3 days later. Like, my partner will attest to this, and this is a trait that I desperately need to work on. But I was so upset. And I couldn't bring myself out of the rut. She'd decorated our hotel room with all these balloons and congratulations and stuff like that when we got home, and I just remember bursting into tears. I felt like a fraud. I was so upset. I had brief moments where people would come and congratulate me, and I would hug them, and I'd feel a little bit better. And I knew that everyone was so supportive, but yeah, I couldn't get out of my own head. I couldn't feel good again for a long while. Looking back on it now, if you ask me now, that's a ridiculous way to be. I had just done my first ever Ironman, and I had done it on a tough day, and I got pretty close, and I should have been proud. And I had the opportunity now to give my bike to someone else, and there were so many positives, but in the moment, it was really difficult to see any. That's just life, I guess, and something that I can work on for next time. I think if I don't get it in Busselton, I will be I'll be very upset, but I'll it won't matter to me as much this time around because I've learned some lessons, I think. But we're going to get it, Buston. I'm going to count on that. Right. Question 20, 5 to go, 6 to go. Do you think you beat yourself up more because you publicly put yourself on display? Yeah, I do. I felt like I owed it to the audience. I really did, to you guys. I felt like I had put enough work in, and I really felt like I was going to be able to do it. And I felt like you were all watching, and you were like, okay, if he's confident, I'm confident. And I felt like I owed it to you. And yeah, I definitely beat myself up a little bit more. I mean, I would have been upset anyway. Like if there was no one following me along and I had done all this work to get there and missed it by that much, I would have been beating myself nonetheless, beating myself up anyway. But I definitely think it was enhanced by the fact that there were so many people watching the journey. So yeah, again, this time around, I need to brace for that, not build it up to be such a big thing, I think. Yeah. Do you think you underestimated the size of an Ironman? Absolutely. In my race recap video on Instagram, it was one of the first things I said is that the distance is just so far. It's hard to comprehend before you do it. It's really hard to comprehend how far it is at the intensity that you're trying to do it at. So yeah, I would maybe go back to that first question that we had, or one of the first questions about have you ever done an Ironman in a training run? Maybe that is the best way to train for an Ironman, is going and fucking doing one, because before you do it, no one can tell you enough information about it to help you understand it. No one. You have to do it, and I definitely underestimated it 100%. All right, will you be racing at Cairns next year? At this stage, probably not. I have Buston, and that is my A race, my sole focus. I would love to get a Kona ticket, if I'm honest, at that race, but I'm not banking on that. I am just going there to get a sub 10. I'm also racing T100 next year in the Gold Coast, which I'm really excited about. But beyond that, I don't have any races booked in, nor do I have plans to do any just yet. Once I get sub 10, if we get sub 10, we will reassess goals and go from there. Something I'm really excited about, though, is getting into coaching. If I can get the sub 10, I will feel comfortable enough being able to coach at some level, and that is really exciting to me. I did 4 years to become a teacher, and I studied teaching and got into schools, and I didn't enjoy it. And the reason being was what I was teaching them I wasn't passionate about. Now I'm extremely passionate about triathlon, and I would love to coach other people to chase big goals and to chase dreams that they have. That really ignites me, and I'm excited to do that post Busselton, if I get the sub 10. I need to get the sub 10 first before I even consider coaching other people. That's just for my own mental clarity. But I am working through some courses at the moment, getting my accreditations to be a coach. So yeah, if you're thinking about getting a coach and you can wait till December, then chat to me then. Okay. So no, I don't think we'll be racing Cairns next year. Will I ride a TT bike or a road bike at Marbella? So the Marbella is the 70.3 World Championships. That is coming up on November 9th. And it is a very, very hilly course. I think there's something like 2,500 meters of elevation, over 90 kilometers. So it's really hilly. And I will be riding a road bike. There is absolutely no way that I will be riding a TT up that many hills. I've just posted a post recently on Instagram explaining that the World Champs is too close to Busselton for me to really go hard at the World Champs. I booked that race when I qualified with the intention of going sub 10 at Cairns and then being able to go really hard at Marbella. Didn't happen. We booked Busselton. So now Marbella is a bit of a training run. So I'm just going to take my roadie that I've got here in the Netherlands, little tests, and we're going to go out there, have a bit of fun, race simulation, bit of practice racing. But I won't be trying to break any records at Marbella, not at all. So, but yes, I will be riding a road bike, not a TT. TT would be way too hard on the hills. How do you get over the post-race blues and gut issues? I think the only thing for post-race blues is time. I really do. I mean, doing things that you love. Like I went to New Zealand with my mates straight after Cairns and snowboarded for a week and a half. met my partner and I when we went to like a day spa and did some massages. So those sort of things where doing things that you enjoy and the self-care are really important. But at the end of the day, any triathlete that's done the Ironman probably knows that the race they lose afterwards, they're serious, man, brutal. And time, I think, is the only thing that really heals that. You just need to go through it, you need to feel it, and then you need to come out the other end and look at the rainbows from there. Because yeah, it happens to the best of us. It certainly happened to me, and yeah. But do things you love. That's what I would recommend. In terms of gut issues, I don't know. I think I've just got a bit of an iron gut. I didn't really have any problems after the race. I think I did during the race and the run, like the sugar water was too much, but straight after the race, I was going to the toilet fine. I was eating fine. Yeah, so I'm not too sure about that. Can't give you any advice, unfortunately. What's your biggest advice for someone who's never done an Ironman? God, there's so much. There's so much advice that I'll give. Pacing. Just don't sleep on the marathon. You've got to realize that you feel good on the bike. Even if you're struggling, you're still moving. You have momentum and you're still moving with the bike. But you can't do that on the run. And if you spend all your tickets, if you burn all your matches before you get to the 20k mark of the run, you're fucked. You are absolutely fucked. And it's going to be a miserable experience. So don't sleep on the marathon. Do lots of training. Do lots of long brief sessions. And get yourself to a point where you're comfortable in training enough to go, yes, I can actually go and do this marathon now after a 180 kilometer bike. That would be the biggest advice. Yeah, literally stick to your training, be consistent. Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, but that would be it. Right, some generic questions to finish off. We've just got 3 of these that I've written here, that you guys have written here. So, what are you going to work on most this prep? This time around, I think I mentioned a couple of times, these questions are all sort of linking into each other here, but this time around, I'm definitely going to be working on nutrition. I need to hone that in. I need to start practicing it in training. So I was doing it in training before, but it was the wrong strategy. It didn't work for race day. So definitely nutrition. I'm also going to be working on volume on the bike at, close to race pace. So 5, 6, potentially 7-hour rides at one point. I'm going to try and really get comfortable being on the bike for long periods of time at that pace that I want to do, so that I can come off and feel comfortable enough to run a marathon. Yeah. That's about it. Right, last 2 questions. Should I do a 70.3 first, or go a Hail Mary and straight into a full Ironman? So, you'd have to be pretty ballsy to go straight into a full Ironman, I'm not going to lie. I am absolutely all for people doing things outside their comfort zone. I really am. And I would highly encourage you to listen to your body and be like, if that's something that you really desire to do, to fucking go and do it. Because that would be a seriously cool challenge, especially if you wanted to vlog it. I would love to watch it. But that would be really hard. And doing an Ironman with no experience at long distance triathlon, it's the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I've done a lot of hard shit. So yeah, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. I think you can do it. I think anyone can do it. But I think that you could make the process easier and more enjoyable by doing a 70.3 first, if that makes sense. Last question. Appreciate you guys hanging around for this whole podcast. Do friends and family ever question your intense commitment to the sport, or are they always supportive? I am blessed to have my partner May by my side. When I first started vlogging this journey and getting into triathlon training, I had to sit down with her and show her the sort of program and the hours that I was going to be training per week. And that was a pretty difficult conversation at the start, but May is the most supportive human being in the world. There is nothing that I can't say that I want to do that won't have her blessing. And it means the world to me to have someone like that by my side. So yeah, May has never questioned my commitment to this. She's always supported. I don't live near my family. Like, I'm always traveling either on the Gold Coast in the Netherlands, so I don't see a lot often enough with my family. But I know that they support me. My brother, my mum, they're all very supportive of me. Um, yeah, so I don't really have anyone that would question what I'm trying to achieve. That is it, guys. I hope that has cleared up what the race was like for me. I really appreciate you guys sending the questions in and listening to this podcast. I hope you get some insights from it. It's been fun talking about it. It really has. And I hope that next time when I do this race recap after Busselton, I can talk about it in a much different light. Hopefully we have the sub 10. Once again, big thank you to Garmin for sponsoring this podcast. I really appreciate you guys supporting me on my journey. And if you guys are in the market for new power meters or new watches or new cycling computers, please go and see Garmin. They are definitely the guys to speak to about that. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.